Thanks for checking out this video. So I have my 5 releases that I got from Vinegar Syndrome for their February releases here. Gonna go ahead and do a quick review, well, quick-ish review of each one of them, and also give you my ranking of where they fall within the February releases. And I happen to be wearing my Vinegar Syndrome Spooky shirt today. That's by pure happenstance. Very weird. So anyway, starting with the lowest rated one for that month, my first Jess Franco film ever. I gotta cover this because there's a nipple. White Cannibal Queen. The main reason I'm putting this as the last one, number 5, is that you know what? Oh, you can see a little nipple on that too. Can I just show the inside? Okay, there we go. I'll just show this because it's going to be a lot easier. I don't have to keep it covered. So it's the movie itself is terrible. I do not like this movie at all. And apparently in the special features they were talking about it, and other people were telling me that Jess Franco himself didn't even like cannibal films. He just needed to do it. He was getting paid to do it, and it comes through in the film. It's horribly done. It's a lot of sequences that are just very long and drawn out. Not a whole lot is going on, and it just feels very uninspired, and it's just terrible. It's not a fun time. There are some good things that you can laugh at within the film, like some of the cannibals themselves. Actually, all the cannibals pretty much just look like 40-something white dudes, like generic 40-something white dudes. They don't look like they're from any other country than Italy, or sorry, Spain. And yeah, it's a terrible movie. But the story behind it is basically a guy who's in this jungle area with his daughter. She ends up getting abducted by this cannibal tribe. He has his arm cut off, but then he ends up recuperating from that. He comes back and he's kind of out for revenge and to get his daughter back, but she's actually been taken in by the tribe as kind of this idol in a sense. Like they think she's kind of like a goddess in one sense. You know, White Cannibal Queen kind of says it all. She basically becomes the queen of it, and it's just about that. But the story idea isn't terrible. It's just the movie itself is terrible. But I would say for people who like Jess Franco or specifically like this particular film, this actually is a good release. The movie is horrendous, in my opinion, just unwatchable for me personally. But they do have a good amount of special features, and I'm trying to see the one with Alessio De Alessio De Rocco, Disney is a film historian who kind of talks on here. That is a particularly good one. Also, Eugenio Ercolani, another film historian talking about kind of European cannibal films. That's very interesting. There's a lot of interesting talk. Oh, Stephen Thrower is on here talking about Jess Franco and Jess Franco's films. So that stuff is extremely interesting. Like all the supplemental stuff, all the special features, very interesting for this release. So that's why I think it's still a good release. It's just the movie is, for me, unwatchable. So that's just where I'll leave it. That's why it's my number 5. All right, now coming in at number 4, actually the one I was the most excited about of these releases, The Carpenter, starring Wings Hauser. Now here's the thing. The movie's fine. It's one of those super low-budget slasher films with Wings Hauser, who I would have liked to go bigger, but I don't think that was him. I really think that was the director, especially after watching the special features. But let me backpedal a little bit first. It's basically a low budget slasher. Wings Hauser is this character who is a murderous carpenter. It's about a woman and her husband who move into this kind of fixer-upper house, and they're getting work done on it, and the woman is seeing at night this character, this murderous carpenter, who's still working on the house. So the work is getting done on the house, but then there are guys who are kind of making advances on her, and he kind of steps in and is like, well, that's not proper, and murders them in interesting ways. So that's kind of the premise. Good premise, but it has this kind of question throughout of is like, is this character just in her mind and she's doing the killings, or is this like the ghost of the person who used to live there? Like, what's going on? So it leaves a lot of questions up in the air until the very end. The last like 15 or 20 minutes is what I like the most, because that's when Wings Hauser is more unchained, and I'm a huge fan of Unchained Wings Hauser performances, so I love that. Also, I really love this artwork on the back. It's great. So there is a disclaimer in the beginning of this movie that basically the elements that they found that looked the best for the actual film were like studio elements, and they look great. They look pretty good for a Blu-ray. And they had cut a lot of the gory stuff out, unfortunately. So they had to find another print of the film that had the gory bits, and then they spliced those out to put in there. And the quality level, they weren't able to clean it up as much, so you definitely see the difference. It takes a major step down in how it looks when it comes to those gorier scenes, but those gorier scenes are some of the best scenes in the film because there are some fun, gory kills in it. So there you go. But this is good. It's light on the special features, which is one of my gripes with this. I would have hoped they could have got a little bit more, but what is on there is pretty good. Like, they have a making of documentary that's a little over a half an hour long. Very interesting hearing from everyone involved with the film. You get a lot of kind of backstory on it as usual, and then a specific interview just with Wings Hauser, and it's always, he's one of the people I always get excited to see interviews with because I really liked his performances from back then, and it's very interesting to get his take on them now. So the special features are quite good. It's just, it's very light on those special features. But The Carpenter was my number 4. I wanted more out of it, but it was fine. Also, the acting in it was better than I thought it would be, and I actually wanted it to be worse because it would have made it more fun and funny. Just saying. Okay, so going to number 3, those two were included with my subscribership. Number 3 was not included. This was one of the cinematograph releases that is Joy of Sex. Now, I didn't love the movie. The movie's fine. I didn't love it. I was like, it's kind of middling. But it is one of those films where it's a sex comedy that's from the more female perspective in a time when they were primarily from the male perspective. It's basically about a woman in high school who is wanting to not be a virgin anymore. She ends up going to get something like a mole looked at on her chest, and she believes, there's kind of this mistaken communication, she believes that it's cancerous and she's in her final days, basically. So she sets out to lose her virginity, and then she runs into this other guy who is also trying to lose his virginity, and it's a sex comedy, so there's a lot of kind of time at the high school and a lot of zany hijinks type things. But the thing is, the zany hijinks aren't really zany or don't seem very much like hijinks. It starts to feel a lot more drama-driven than it does comedy-driven. But there are some decent-ish comedy moments in it. I just wanted a lot more from the story itself. But the reason that this is higher up as a release is because the special features are very good, including an interview with Colleen Camp, who is in the film, who you also might know from movies like Clue, and what's the other one that was recent? Death Game, which was on the last drive-in, which is a pretty fun movie. But she is amazing. She is an amazing interview. Anytime I see that there's a special feature with a Colleen Camp interview, I am immediately interested because I could listen to her talk all day. The story she has, I love it. Her personality, I love it. So she is one of the best features on here, in my opinion. But there are also really cool interviews with the people who wrote the film, the people who directed the film, giving all their perspectives on how things went with it, including a lot of interference by the studio, and this film could have been something different than what it ended up being. So this is one of those releases, and I think Cinematograph Line is really good with this, at taking something, putting it out there, and then in the special features and also in the essays, which are phenomenal in this, say, this is not a perfect film. This is not a great film. And even point out, these are the areas where it's lacking. But this is the importance of the film. And these are the reasons why it didn't end up turning out a certain way. And that's what I love about these releases. Excuse me, my hand's like cramping up. The essays in particular do an unbelievable job of kind of giving more context to this film and why it's important and why it's interesting and why it failed. And you do also get a little bit of that from the special features on there as well. But It is because of the special features and essays that I am putting this up as high as it is. If you do like Joy of Sex, you will love this release. It is a phenomenal release if you love that film. So, Joy of Sex, my number 3. Now getting to my number 2, and this one I wasn't all that excited about because I don't like possession films for the most part, because they all feel very similar. They all use a lot of the same cliche stuff, a lot of the same stuff happens. The story doesn't feel very unique or interesting, but The Possession of Joel Delaney, which by the way is a 4K, quite good in my opinion. I was very surprised by this one, and maybe part of it was that I went in with very low expectations because I'm like, I don't really like possession films. The story feels kind of fresh. It feels like it's its own thing. It's about a brother and sister who have become kind of estranged. He's living in the lower income area of New York City, and she's living a very high life, really. She's very successful. She has plenty of money. And it's about them kind of reconnecting at a time when he's starting to be possessed. I mean, the title says it, The Possession of Joel Delaney. He's starting to become possessed. Now, the progression of the possession is very well done. It's not too fast. It's not too slow. It's believable for what's going on within the story. And it's super interesting. Also, there are some pretty good deaths in the film, some good gore in there. The acting is really good in this film. And I just really like the feel of it. I think it's pretty outstanding. Well, not outstanding, but very good. Outstanding is kind of another level that it does not reach. Now, as far as the special features go, I need to kind of remind myself. There are some decent special features, including talking to some of the people who acted in it, some of the people who were involved with making the film. They have one of those like locations shooting things, which is kind of interesting to see, especially when this was New York City in the 70s, because it had a very particular feel and look at that time, and now to see like what it is now. So there's that. And then there's a little essay booklet in here, which I believe only has one essay, but the essay is really good. So special features are pretty good with this one, and the film itself is really good. Big fan of this one. The Possession of Joel Delaney really surprised me. If you were considering it slightly, get it. It's worth it. This is a good one. One of the better possession films I've seen. Okay, now coming in at number 1. Oh, and also this was another included one with my subscription. The last one at number 1 is one that I purchased in edition, and I almost didn't purchase it because I was very on the fence. And Justin LaLiberty, who runs Cinematograph, I'm in a Discord with him, and I basically said, like, sell me on this release because I'm on the fence. And he did a great job doing it. One of the big things that sold me is, he said, Tilda Swinton's performance in this is phenomenal. So I was like, okay, that's the push I needed. Female Perversions, the Cinematograph release. This is an artsy film. It's about a woman played by Tilda Swinton who is doing very well in life. She doesn't have everything she wants, and she's trying to balance all these aspects of being a female in a male-dominated world. So this is very much from the female perspective. And like I said, it's very artsy. So it is kind of slow because it's artsy, but it also is very deep in character development and character, what do I want to say, investigation kind of. And just the struggles that you kind of feel her character going through. But not just her, because there are a bunch of other strong, very interesting female characters in this film that all represent these kind of different aspects of femininity and how femininity is looked at and the perversions of it as is thought of by, you know, male-dominated society. So it's just a very interesting perspective. This is something that I've never seen anything like it before in that sense, and it's very unique, and it tells one hell of a story in my opinion. So it's not just the movie itself. After watching the movie, I was like, that was a good movie. And yes, Tilda Swinton was phenomenal. And yes, as a lot of people have pointed out online, the sex scene between Tilda Swinton and Clancy Brown is the sex scene you didn't think you needed to see. There is a lot of chemistry there, like very interesting chemistry. Plus, I just love Clancy Brown. He's awesome. And Tilda Swinton in this is phenomenal. But it's after the film was done, I was like, yeah, that's a good film. Like, I did enjoy that film. It's very metaphorical. It's very artsy. It is very well acted. It's a solid film. Then I started getting into the special features, including interviews with the filmmaker, the writers, people involved in the acting in it, and getting all their takes on not just how things were done with the film, but their take on how it related to them, what they personally were trying to put into it, and how strong of a story it is. Great. Also, then one of the things I love Cinematograph for the most is the essays. The essays are outstanding, outstanding on this, especially the way it delves into the deeper meanings. And it's not just like, what was this movie trying to say? It was, what is the importance of this film kind of in the history of film, in a sense, but also it looks at some other situations as well, societally, that are going on and how it could relate to this film itself. I don't want to give too much away about it, but this film is quite good, and the special features are even better, and it's one of those great examples of stuff that Vinegar Syndrome puts out where they enhance the experience of the film so much with those special features and essays. This is a perfect example of it. At the moment, I believe, of what's been released for 2025 by them, and it's just January and February, I think this is their best release right now, in my opinion. So that's just me. Number one, female perversions. If it sounds like it's interesting to you, you should definitely get it. Because it's one of those films, too, that I was on the fence about it. I know a lot of people probably are not purchasing it, so it's going to stick around, unfortunately, and those are the types of films I really wish would just move more. So and that's part of the reason that I do this, is I want to bring the awareness to these types of films that people may have been like, I don't know about that one, but then maybe hearing me talk so highly of it, they're like, okay, I'll give it a shot. It's worth it. So anyway, good stuff. Those are my rankings. Go ahead and tell me what you did like, what you didn't like. Also, just, any nerdy stuff you want to talk about, put it in the comments. Do me a quick favor, hit subscribe to my channel to show your support. Thumbs up on the video also is a good way to show your support for free. But if you do want to kick in a little bit of cash for what I'm doing here, that is very appreciated. I do have a link for memberships in the description, and I have 3 levels for very small fees monthly, and you get some good perks with that, including getting access to videos early, like this one. People getting a few days early access to this, and some videos even like months, like 1-2 months ahead, stuff like that. But there are other things. You can check it out. Regardless, thank you so much for taking your time to watch this, and until next time, keep it brutal.